Questions? I talked a lot. Yeah.
Dr. Dave Swenson from Iowa State was asked about the national debt. He was not concerned about it. Are you concerned about it? And then the other question, Lisa Richardson in the South Dakota Corn Growers told us the potential is huge for going from 200 bushel an acre to 300 bushel. If we don't get that blend wall, corn prices could have. Do you agree or disagree with those two statements?
So the first question is, are you worried about the national debt? I'm gonna, and you said Dave Swenson wasn't worried, and I would put myself, and I don't lose much sleep about it, okay? Because actually we've with the, oh shoot, get up here, it's not sequester, we have actually slowed the growth of the deficit. And although the debt is increasing, we've slowed it. The key on debt is being able to grow your economy faster than the debt, okay? And we went through a period where it wasn't the case. Now I think we're getting back. I'm not terribly concerned about it, okay? But again, that's predicated on getting economic growth. And if you believe the Fed, they say 2.5% is a sustainable growth rate in the U.S. economy. If we do that, then boy, we're going to have to have some serious questions about that, because I think we've been increasing it faster than that. I'm more optimistic than they are. I think we'll grow faster than 2.5%. I hope so for my kids' sake. So I'm not terribly worried about debt. Now, the other question is basically, 300 bushel of corn, and boy, are we going to produce so much of the darn stuff that we go, we just swim in it again? And the potential is certainly there. Okay? We're still a long ways away from doing that in any kind of consistent case, and realize, we had, across the U.S., last year was a pretty darn good growing year. And it was a good growing year in some of the major producing areas. Illinois growing huge yields, okay? And we still only went above trend a little bit. We didn't go crazy, okay? So I think, yes, are there people already growing trend? You bet there are people doing it. It's a long-term deal, okay? That's a long-term thing. Our potential in farming has always been to push supply ahead of demand. I don't think that's changed. The balance we've got to walk is if we can keep the emerging economies growing, I think we can keep it tight. But again, you take the blend wall at E15, go to E15, we've got to grow opportunity. Okay? The Brazilians, for instance, when I was at Purdue, we got lots of, at Farm Progress Show, they love to come to Farm Progress Show, and they come to Illinois, and they talk to Illinois, and they come to Purdue, and tell them all things that Illinois told them was wrong. Just kidding, those guys are smarter. They would come up, and the last group, I'll never forget, they were seasoned. I think they were from Argentina. And they're like, look, we want to grow, we're going to grow a lot of corn. The Brazilians said the same thing. We are going to grow corn. And I said, well, let's look at it. I mean, at $7, yeah, I believe you want to grow a lot of corn, right? But what's their biggest challenge? Logistics. What does growing corn do that calculation? Things are a heck of a lot worse, right? You have twice as much stuff to deal with, at least. So, I said, the question is, I know you want to grow corn now, but what about $4? Now you want to grow corn or you want to grow beans? And I think that's the reality. That's why I think we aren't going to see a lot of $7 stuff. We can see it someday, but it's not going to be a regular thing. And so I think they have challenges down there. So that's the one place where we've got some supply, buffering that I think we're not just going to go terribly to the red, but the potential is clearly in agriculture to supply. And if we do, what are we going to do? I mean, we'll stop and stop looking fast, we'll stop growing, continue to grind corn. We'll go to fallow. And other places where we can keep variable costs. Yeah.
They're talking about a target rate of 2% inflation.
Yeah.
Somebody making $50,000 a year and they're taking $1,000 a year pay cut. How does that go?
right? So here's the deal with inflation, because the reason they pick 2% is they want some, but they don't want too much, okay? And the reason you don't want zero is that it's really hard to get zero. And if you go negative, what do you got? Deflation. And once you hit deflation, economic activity grinds to a halt. And again, that's what Europe is dealing with. And it's, Japan had this problem. They lost an entire decade. They're still dealing with it. So the reason the Fed wants us to have some inflation, this question is why 2%? And that doesn't seem right. Your money's getting worth less every year. Great question. Okay? But I think the reason is you want some inflation to make sure economic activity goes, but it's always that problem of how much. If 2% is good, why not 4? Why not 8? Well, we know if it does that, then it causes all kinds of problems too. So, I don't know. Certainly, there's a lot of theory that went into the 2% rule. I'm not as familiar with it, but I put it into just the Goldilocks deal, right? Not too much, not too little. And I think that's where it's at. Other questions? Yeah.
Do you think the strength of our dollar can become a problem? I mean, as an example, we had beans today on the board trade were $9.80. And if you take South American's currency, convert to ours, their beans are worth $8.91.
Right. It is going to be a problem. So the question is the strength of the dollar going to be a problem? And I think it's going to put some serious headwinds on trade for us. And we just wrote an article today about taking, if you look at a Japanese corn buyer, for instance, from 2014, from the start to the end, corn prices went down. I don't remember what the number was, like from 173% on the index. But in Japan, it was only down about to like 93%. So their perception of how much cheaper grain prices are in the United States is not much, right? Because the dollar has gone up in value so much. The problem is I don't see how this is going to resolve without just getting worse. Because right now, we are about the only major economy in the world that's talking about raising rates. Everybody else is, even Canada cut rates the other day. So what does that do? When the rates go down, it makes this more attractive, so people want to invest here, the dollar goes up, and it's a real drag. And right now, everybody else is trying to go the other way, cut rates, and we're talking about raising rates. So it's going to be headwinds. I think we're just going to have to deal with it. It's not rosy. I have a hard time making that a rosy situation. It's going to be tough going forward. That's going to be a big headwind on demand, which makes, again, that whole EPA thing on ethanol, where they just kind of pocket beat at it or whatever they did, going to be real important going forward. Yeah. Come on.
I spent 3 years in Spain. And the unemployment in Spain is so bad. The older people are hanging on to the jobs, and the younger people cannot find a job because is that the way it is through all of Europe?
So the question is, in Spain, his son had spent time there. He said, look, it's terrible. The young people can't get a job. The older people hold on to them. It's a really bad economy to be looking for a job. A lot of Europe is in that situation, especially Southern Europe. They have real structural problems in their economy. And if you're a young person there, it's tough to get a job, especially now that they're in deflation, because they're all the economy just slowing more all the time, so there's fewer jobs. I think Europe has got a real problem, and it's really, they've got other issues too, because they've got groups that don't have jobs, and ethnic groups. I mean, it's a problem. And it's not going to be solved overnight, and that's not real attractive. The United States, that's the other thing with employment. You look at those employment numbers, and there are a lot of people look at that and go, well, that's part of the reason that a rate drops so fast is because a lot of people have the labor force. And there are problems. It's not so much here in the heartland. If you look at the employment statistics, it's like through the Great Plains and through the heartland, unemployment rates are pretty low. The problem is on the coast. And it's somewhat structural and it's tough to fix. And the Fed, the central bank, can't do much to help it. They've done about all they can do. And so part of it is you just got to get businesses going and believing and hiring people. It's tough. So Europe has got their challenges. Yeah.
If something like China, if they do have the China EU problems, you see it in a longer term risk of other countries trading oil in a different currency or world currency or something instead of U.S. dollars? Is there much risk in that or not?
Well, there was a lot of debate about this, dollar will be reserve currency and all that kind of stuff. Gosh, you don't hear much about that anymore. And I don't think we're going to hear much about it for a long time, because when you look at the world, our economy is really large and pretty darn stable. And if you want to put your money in a currency and feel good about it, it's still, the United States is still the place to be. And I just don't see that app changing for a long time. So, will there be chinks in that over time? Yeah, maybe, where we start to deviate from it. It's not going to happen anytime soon, in my opinion. Yeah.
You kind of touched on it earlier, but I just wondered, obviously we haven't done ourselves any huge favors as far as driving our cost structure down on this row crop production side of things, but, I assume our new competitors, whether they're raising all the corn in Ukraine or South Africa or where have you, we're still probably doing it for less than them or not, or are they going to blink before we blink, or how's that all going to shake out?
Well, it's really, there are lots of studies of that kind of stuff. I would say, probably in this region, your cost of production, certainly on a variable cost basis, as low as they are almost anywhere in the world. And on top of it, you have such tremendous advantages, okay? So I have a hard time saying, I'm going to pick up stakes and move to Ukraine or, someplace like that where they've got terrible institutional advantages. The United States can be a premier agricultural country for the foreseeable future. We have way too many tremendous resources, tremendous knowledge, there's just too many advantages to overcome in any kind of short time. South America's got a great opportunity ahead of them. Okay, but they continually find ways to screw it up too, right? Their president now, what's the big scandal? The guy who's going to release the expose on winds up dead in a hotel room. They'll tax their ag exports. They've got tremendous resources, but it takes a lot of long-term investment. We didn't get this system overnight. It was built decades in making, plus just wonderful natural resources. So, if you look on a total cost basis, maybe, but part of that, I remember a famous economist once was complaining. I couldn't believe this because he's like, our fixed costs are too high, our land costs are too high. Well, the land costs reflect that this is a good place to produce, right? I vote for higher land costs because it means that we're making money, right, on over variable costs, and it's going into land. Now, if we get too high, then we have to adjust downward. But those high land costs, as part reflective, this is a good place to do business. And it's a kind of a residual of our variable cost positions. So think about variable costs, not total costs. You're ready to get the hood. I'll be here. I don't want to stand in front of ice cream. Thank you.
Thanks again to Dr. Gloy for being with us. Those of you that have been here for years, this is really important to us to try and bring timely information to you that's valuable for your farm and your ranch.